first kind of hot topic that I think I should cover, which is the number one reason that people get any sort of fitness coaching or nutrition coaching. Sometimes they might not say this outwardly, a lot of times they do, but it actually comes down to appearance. People want to lose some fat, right? They want to lose some jiggly bits so they can fit into their nicer clothes, so that they can wear swimwear, so that they can feel like a more youthful version of themselves. Basically, it comes down to, they want to look better because it makes them feel better about themselves when they look in the mirror, and it makes them feel more confident when they're around other people, when they look their best, okay? Now, I'm not here to argue that, not having some level of self-acceptance isn't a good idea, right? I think everyone should work towards that. But if losing fat makes you feel better about yourself, then it's definitely something you can do, and it's got some hefty benefits, right? It's going to benefit your health, it's going to benefit you physically, and it's going to benefit you from a performance standpoint, because having less fat means that usually you're able to perform better physically as well. So, in today's little episode, I want to talk about how we can get fat off our body and understand exactly how that process works, because there are so many different products and services out there that can or reach their hand out to say, hey, take my hand and I will, whether it's Weight Watchers, Slimming World, shakes, fat loss supplements, 5-2, no carbs. There's just a multitude. Like, there's loads of gyms, there's loads of different products out there that are, trying to help you to lose fat. But I think the first thing we have to understand is, what is fat? How do we get it off our body? So I'm going to use the handy little paint app in the background. Wait until I just get rid of my big hairy head, and I'll throw myself a little bit smaller, throw myself down here, okay? So we're going to go with Ted today. I like Ted. So Ted is the first member of the Body Transformation Clinic, and Ted would like to look like sexy Ted, okay, and less like this version of Ted over here, okay. Now, the first thing we have to understand, oh my god, Ted looks a bit demented. The first thing we have to understand is that fat loss, or fat, is, oh, let me get my head a bit bigger here, okay. So the first thing we have to understand, what is fat? Well, fat is a way for your body to store energy for later. So if you go back 100, 200, my history is not great here, but hundreds of years ago, maybe thousands of years ago, when there was cave people, there might have been periods of famine, right? There was less access to food, and it got a little bit colder. There was less crops to forage, right? And there was less boars running around, right? So there was just less food in general. And if they were not like Ted, then they might die when the famine came, or when the season changed. And the people who are more like Ted, who gained a lot of body fat and ate more, they survived. And so it's become a sort of prominent feature of humans, is our ability to store fat for later times, okay? So yeah, you can see we're all the big Teds, right? all the big Teds survived, skinny Teds ain't here anymore. So when you think of it from that perspective, getting fat off your body kind of requires, and this is going to sound a little bit bad, right, but it kind of requires you to put yourself through those famine periods, right? You have to get that fat off your body. How do you do that? You burn more energy than you consume, okay? So you burn more energy than you consume. So that's on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. As long as you burn more than you consume over a time period, you're going to net lose fat. And that is what has to happen for Ted here to get the fat off. Oh, apologies. Let's just turn this off. Cool. So, calorie deficit. You'll have heard this term thrown about loads. Buzzword, okay? Buzz terminology. It just means the amount of energy that you're consuming less than you're required to maintain the body that you have. So in Ted's case here, let's say Ted is 15 stone, just for example, and he is lightly active. Okay, so when you use something like MyFitnessPal, which I would recommend if you're going to try and go on a calorie deficit, it's an app on your phone. It's going to ask you your weight currently, and it's going to ask you your activity level. Now for activity levels, you've got like sedentary, which means you've just got an office job and you don't really do very much. Slightly active would be someone who maybe has an office job but walks their dog twice a week. Active might be someone who has a more active role where they're on their feet all the time, but they also train 3 or 4 times a week. And then very active, for example, might be someone who's a carpet fitter who also trains 3 times a week. Okay, so these are the kind of ideas, and most calorie counters will give you some sort of description for what they are. So Ted here's 15 stone, he's lightly active, and just to make my life easy, we're going to say that he requires, let's get rid of this now, so he's 15 stone, lightly active, he requires 2,000 calories to lose, in his case, a pound per week, so 1 pound per week. Okay, it's a 500 calorie deficit, so that means that his maintenance calories might be 2,500 per day, so that just maintains Ted, that's going to be the same size of each 2,500, but we take 500 off, that's the deficit each day, gives him 2,000, and then if he does that for a week, so if he runs that minus 500 each day for 7 days, that's minus 3,500, that's where it gets kind of complex. That minus 3,500 is equivalent to burning 1 pound of fat off Ted's body. And so that's where this comes from. So he's on 2,000 calories a day, he's at a calorie deficit of 500, he's got 500 less than he should have, so his body got to go find those 500 calories of energy somewhere, hopefully body fat, and it burns a pound of fat off Ted, and he gets closer to skinny Ted. And so every diet, every methodology that exists for getting fat off your body uses this principle. It puts you in a calorie deficit. And so I think that in this day and age, skip the middleman. Just find out how many calories it takes for you to maintain. And you don't even have to do the complicated maths anymore. You can just use an app. You can just use MyFitnessPal is the one that I use. It's one I've used for a decade now, but there are other ones. Find one that you like. It's just like Google. You Google the food that you're eating, you put in the weight of the food, or put a good guesstimate in. It takes off your total every day, and it's as simple as that. As opposed to having to do a diet where you have to be restrictive and not eat certain foods, not eat carbs, all that kind of stuff. You can just avoid that these days and just go straight to the maths. So let me get my big ball heat back up. Okay, so fat loss, or what is fat, is a way for your body to store energy for later. How do we get fat off our body? We have to create a calorie deficit. The size of the deficit is going to decide and determine how much fat comes off each week. A lot of people want to lose fat really, really quickly because they want to get to sexy Ted, right, much faster. And I think a lot of people treat fat loss like a train, that you just get on the fat loss train and then you get to your destination and then you get off and go and eat pizza and ice cream, right, and enjoy yourself and give up on the fitness thing. The reality is, if you want to have a sexy Ted body, then you're going to have the sexy Ted habits, right? You're going to have to stay on that train. Now, if you go on the fast express train that requires a lot of effort, let's say, to run, and a lot of fuel, a lot of energy, so you've got to cut your food down a lot, you have to exercise 6-7 times per week, it's going to be unsustainable to stay on that train. Like, if you want to live a normal life, go on holiday, socialise, eat some cake, the chances are that that's not the train for you. And that's most of the people that I train, I don't train a lot here, but most of the people that I work with don't fall into that camp. They still want to have an ice cream with their kids, they still want to go on holiday for 2 weeks, all inclusive, like I just did, and eat what they want. They still want to enjoy Christmas. So they can't go on that express train and stay on it. Maybe they go on it for little trips, but most of the time they're on a consistent train of consistent habits. Training, 2 to 4 hours per week, home workouts, group personal training, running, loads of different things, right? As well as having some sort of weight management, some sort of nutrition management, actually looking at calories and macros in some way, shape or form, so that they have an idea of what's going on in their body, and then they can have a little bit of control over where their body is at. Okay, now 2 seconds and I'll shrink my head and we'll get back to doodling. So now we've got a good understanding of what is fat, how do we get it off, And now we're going on into, what makes it then difficult? Why is it so hard for people to do this? Why is it so difficult? So I would argue there's 3 key mistakes most people make. They go too fast, they don't give themselves any space for breaks, and they try and make too many changes at one time. So they go too fast. So that is like, okay, I want to lose, instead of doing the 500 calorie deficit, they think, okay, I could go 2 times as fast if instead of doing the 2,000 calories test case, they go to 1,500. So yeah, that allows, that jogging to be 2 times faster, but it makes it almost 2 times more unsustainable, because the changes that have to be made in terms of eating behaviours to go into a minus 1,000 calories is huge compared to just minus 500. It just makes it so much less comfortable and so much more difficult to enjoy your life, right, and enjoy food. And this example here, Ted, if we change this to Ted here at 15, so if we change this to someone, maybe a lady who is 12 stone and would like to get to, quite commonly, it's always a 10 stone mark, women, so 12 and 11, 10 stone, they might find that to get £1 off a week, they have to be on 1.5. If they wanted to get £2, they would have to be on 1,000, and that is just crazy. You should not do it. It's unsustainable, and your life will suck. Okay, so going too fast is a big problem. Secondly, I forgot what secondly was. Too many changes at one time. So people maybe join the gym, try to go to the gym 4 times a week, try to start tracking their calories, try to start increasing the amount of protein they're eating, try to cut out chocolate. They try to do everything. I'll just throw everything at this and get the result. And it's like, no, because what will happen is you will have a bad day at work, or something will happen at home, and the whole thing will implode, and then you will just end up back here and you won't make any progress. So you have to start really small. Okay, so it has to be 2 changes probably. 2 changes, get them in for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you can start layering things on. That's my professional opinion. Okay, 2 core changes. So counting your calories, getting more physically active. Could be just increasing your steps. Could be going to a couple of group training sessions. Could be going to a class a week. That's it. 2 changes for 6 to 8 weeks. Make it work, get some results, and then you can start to layer changes in. With this approach, everything stacks on top of each other nicely, and you start to build the habits, and you not only move to the place you want to be with your fat loss, but you're more likely to actually keep those changes in place and keep the body that you're working so hard to get. So there is that. So going too fast, too many changes, and I forgot the middle one. I'm going to have to come back to it at some point. So now we understand what is fat. How do we get fat off? What's the principle? Well, let's create a calorie deficit. What mistakes do people make when it comes to fat loss? The next thing is, how does exercise factor into this? Because you might have noticed so far, we've just really talked about creating a calorie deficit and food. How can exercise help you with fat loss? So exercise can help you to lose fat because primarily it burns calories. So if you do 3 hours of exercise, it might burn 1,000 calories or 1,500 additional calories a week. If you were to just eat maintenance calories and do an additional 1,500 calories of exercise a week, then you would lose half a pound per week. So it has that primary benefit of burning calories. So it's got that. But more importantly are the secondary benefits that kind of pick up over time. So that is, it improves your physical health, it makes you stronger, makes you more supple, makes you more resistant to injury. It builds muscle, or it maintains muscle, and that muscle mass is like your body's engine that burns calories, it's metabolically active. And so the more of that we have, or the more of that we maintain as we get older, the more calories we tend to burn. Even at rest, like just sitting here doing this, because I'm carrying 30 pounds more muscle than the version of me who had never done any exercise, I'm burning 30 pounds of muscle, more fat per minute sitting on this computer, because that has a cost, right? And muscle has a metabolic cost. So we always want to have a little bit more muscle than average. This doesn't mean that you want to be like a Hulk, right? But you want to have a little bit more muscle than average, especially as we get older into 40s, 50s and 60s, because of the benefits it gives us. Mental health is another thing. So it's proven that exercise releases endorphins that help us to feel better and be more resistant to stress, believe it or not. So those are some of the secondary benefits, but they tend to become the primary benefits over time. Okay, firstly it's just like, oh, I just want to use it to burn some more extra calories. Then eventually it's like, it helps your mental health, it makes you stronger, it makes you fitter, makes you more supple, makes you more resistant to injury, makes your metabolism work faster. These things start to pick up, and then they become the primary reason that people do exercise. And exercise is a really inefficient way to lose fat. If you're going to use it as the sort of primary means of losing fat, then I would say just don't bother. Because if you just, so I see this all the time, like people will go to the gym and they'll exercise 3-4 hours per week, and they won't do anything with nutrition. They just join the gym or they just go into some classes and they just expect that the fat will come off their body, and nothing happens, right? Nothing happens, because when we exercise, one of the things that can happen is that it increases your appetite. Makes sense. You're being active, that sends a signal to your brain saying, hey, I'm doing more exercise. And then there's signals to say, you should eat more food to make up for the exercise that you're doing. So if you just add in 3 hours of exercise or 4 hours of exercise and make no change to your nutrition, the chances are your body weight might stay the same. You'll get all the benefits we just talked about, but your body weight might just stay the same. We see this at gyms up and down the country, where there's people who are quite fit, who do 3-4 hours of exercise, but their body shape is kind of the same. Maybe have a little bit more muscle, but they're still carrying a fair bit of fat. Now, all power to them, awesome that you've got into fitness. But if you speak to them and you say, what are you primarily here for? A lot of times they'll say, because I want to look better and I want to lose fat. So, nutrition is more efficient. Here's why. In terms of 500 calories, like if we want to create a 500 calorie deficit each day so we can lose a pound a week, we just have to find a way to organise the nutrition so that we eat 500 calories less than maintenance. So back to Ted, he has to eat 2,000 calories. So he just has to find a way to do that every single day. And the energy and time cost isn't huge. Maybe some meal planning, maybe 15 minutes a day. Like if you tally it up over the week, maybe it's like a couple hours, okay? Doing the right shopping, things he's already doing anyway, you know, but just organising a bit better. So it's a small energy and time cost. Okay, other side, instead of doing that, Ted's just going to exercise and burn 3,500 calories off a week. So a 500 calorie deficit each day through exercise. That's the equivalent of running a 10K for most people every day, or going to the gym and doing a HIIT workout every day. Most people are not going to be able to do 7 hours of exercise a week. They're just not going to have the time to do it. Plus the fact you're probably going to increase your risk of injury because you're training so much, and maybe you've not trained that hard, and you're just going from 0 to 7 hours a week. So it's just inefficient. So exercise is better as the co-pilot when it comes to fat loss. Nutrition, create the calorie deficit through nutrition, and then use exercise as the co-pilot to get all the benefits, all the health benefits and all the physical benefits, and to provide a boost to your fat loss, to expedite results. But don't think of exercise as a primary driver. Get your nutrition sorted first. So, hopefully today this has been a helpful clinic on fat loss. And yeah, hopefully some of you are thinking, I don't know, thinking you could be more like Skinny Ted. That sounds really bad. I don't want people to be skinny. I want you to be perfectly proportioned and happy and content in your own skin. And if that means losing some fat, then understand the principles of how to do so. If this was helpful, hit the like, and I'll catch you all next time for the second clinic.